What's up, YouTube? My name is Chop Celery, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing my Evasive Gunslinger build for an extreme difficulty run in the game GreedFall. Now, for those of you who have played the Dragon Age series, so this game's combat, it's going to make you feel right at home, just with the only exception that you can't directly take control of your allies in battle. So with this being said, it really makes your actions as Desarde even more vital to your team's success in the various encounters throughout the course of the game. The build that I'm about to show you is quite good at taking down large groups of enemies, as well as it's pretty good against one-on-one or like boss encounters. So in this video, I'm going to review the gear that my Desarde has equipped, the skills that I chose for my specific build, where I allocated my attributes, as well as the points I've spent into my talents. So let's get started. So let's open up and take a look. So with the gear, I decided just to go with the Merchant Prince armor set. So this, I believe, can be found pretty early in the game. It only requires endurance level 2, but you know, given that this build is going to be predominantly focusing on guns and bombs, I didn't really focus on having a decent amount of endurance. So I just use the Merchant Prince and the Ambassador hat set. So I just have a regular necklace that I found, just gives me a little bit of healing over time, which is good. I added the guard cape. You know, that's just my preference, because I really don't like repping any of the other factions. This is just a regular raggedy old black cape. It just adds a little bit of balance, also gives you some armor, if really any, and it just boosts up your charisma. For my melee weapon, I chose a scimitar. This, I believe, also can be found pretty early in the game. It's right after New Serene, I believe. You have to have at least 2 vigor. You have to jump across there's just a jump I think you got to make with at least 2 vigor, and that's where I found it. And then my main ranged weapon, I typically just use this, the Prince Flintlock rifle. I did end up purchasing this from a vendor, and it does have an upgrade to it that just deals more physical damage. As a backup that sometimes I've been playing around with is the Asili Blunderbuss. Now you can find this in, oh gosh, when you, it's the Dr. Asili quest where you explore his lab and that kind of stuff. I don't want to spoil too much, but that's where I got it from. It's actually just in his office. So once you get to that point, you'll find this there. It does just right off the bat look like it's not as powerful as the Prince Flintlock rifle, but there's something to notice. It does slightly more armor damage, so just by 10, but as you see, it does 326 elemental damage. So that could be powerful in certain situations, you know. I haven't really tested it out, so that's just why it's my backup for now, but you know, maybe that's for a later video. But okay, so we've done that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the skills that I've chose for this build. So I started off as a technician archetype, which granted my character the use of the one-handed blades, which just allows the use of single-handed swords and daggers, you know, rapiers, that kind of stuff. It came with firearms, which, you know, grants the use of pistols, as well as the scent trap skill, which just allows you to use like alchemical potions, or you use them as traps that you set on the ground, and they'll detonate when an enemy gets close or just within range. So now, this build can seem a little daunting at first, especially if you start right off the bat on Extreme, which I did, just because you're not going to have enough materials to really craft the bullets and the potions. You know, just because the materials are quite scarce and you don't have a high chemistry ability just in the beginning, but trust me, you're going to want to stick with this. You're not going to regret this, okay? So, I do use one-handed blades sometimes, just because it is fun to use in certain combat scenarios. I don't always like just standing back and just shooting. That gets pretty boring. So I did end up maxing it out, just so that way it does a little bit more damage. Let's see. The kick also unbalances more and does more damage to armor. I'm never really using this, you know, just straight up just to take enemies down. This is all just sometimes good just to finish enemies off. That's just usually what I find. So because I maxed out this tree with the single-handed blades, it gave me the option to unlock roll, which you're going to want this for any kind of melee build or like a gunslinger kind of build. It just allows you to use a roll in the middle of combat. So when you tap A or X, so A for Xbox, X for PlayStation, when you double tap that, if you just tap it without hitting the the directional pad, or the thumbstick, without a direction, it's just going to make you roll backwards, that's definitely handy. But when you push a certain direction on the thumbstick and double tap A or X, it's just going to make you roll. So it's just a good evasion ability. Also, it just increases the fury that's generated by all attacks, which is always helpful in combat. It increases the fury generated by counterattacks. You do more damage to enemies from behind, and then you generate more fury when attacking enemies from behind. So it's just a overall good ability. So I maxed that out. As you can see, I do have a decent amount of skill points left. I did find a lot of the skill altars throughout the world, so there's just really an overabundance of skills that really allows you to be creative in generating a build of your own to really make it yours, or really just to experiment. So I did max out the gun, the firearm skills, so they'll do more damage, eventually then allowing you to use rifles. So despite rifles having a slower reload speed, I found that they always do more damage to armor, and just in general they just do more damage. So that's always good for a combat encounter. Okay, so the next one, for the set trap, I only ended up maxing this out just because I wanted eventually to get to the vial throw. So the vial throw just allows you to use those alchemical preparations. You actually get to throw them instead of just placing them on the ground. So it's really just good utility. And then maxing out this skill tree, you can stand farther away and hit enemies with it. They increase the damage or the dose of poison, or increase the duration of the mixes that you'll throw at enemies. And also, it's always good to have a larger area effect. Just good to take down enemies and have a better crowd control. So for the technician, because primarily I focused on this tree. So each of these trees, as I said in another video, that they all have like a ultimate ability, if you want to reference them that way. These ultimate abilities in each of these trees, they use your fury meter. Now you can use your fury just with like a melee weapon. It'll do like an unblockable attack. It'll use some of your fury. But each of these trees, they have an ultimate ability that will actually use all of your fury. It just needs to be completely full. Like you have to have a maxed out fury bar to make use of this. And typically they're very powerful abilities. So for the technician, it's a bomb. You throw a bomb at enemies that hits in a large area. As you can see, it does a lot of armor damage, 450. It does 600 stun, and it does 675 elemental damage. And then, the 2 points afterwards. So the first one, it greatly increases the area of effect. So plus 3 meters, that's a decent amount. And then the bomb, it also poisons enemies. So now it not only does a decent AoE, but now it does damage over time with poison. So that's really awesome. That's going to help you take down enemies even if they're not focusing on you, if they're going after your companions in combat. So I did end up taking 2 magic points, like magic skills, as you can see. So I'll go over the first one, and I reviewed this in another video. The Shadow Burst. This is just a really good ability. It's an AoE that just knocks enemies back. It does stun and magic damage. So this is just in case you're getting overwhelmed and you have some magic points left and you don't want to roll away, you can just use this, knock back your enemies. I did pick up the rest of the points in here, so it slows down enemies when in close proximity so that you can get this cast off, so that's pretty handy. It'll do more damage, it increases the area of effect, as well as it just increases the stun ability. It knocks them off balance, by 50% more. And then the last ability that I ended up choosing was Stasis. Now, in the other video for my mage, this is really the bread and butter of that build. I still feel like this is great for single enemies, especially when you max it out, this tree. It lasts longer. It'll actually take away their armor progressively as they're stunned and in stasis. It costs less magic energy, and then they'll take more damage when they're in stasis. So a good thing to focus on if you want to think of it like just a setup, you can stun an enemy you can put them in stasis. And usually you'll see there's a timer right next to their health pool. It'll tell you how long that you have left. So I would stasis an enemy, go ahead and focus on other enemies that you're fighting, and then, just because with the ability maxed out completely in the tree, it'll take their armor off, so that way, in case you want to just, when they have maybe 2 seconds left, focus on them and shoot them, you're going to do 50% more damage, and you're not going to have to worry about eating through some of their armor. It's going to hit like an absolute truck. So, that's just food for thought. So, let's tell you what, let's move on to the attributes that I focused on for this build. Immediately, I just decided to start putting points in accuracy, just because the main focus of my build was just, I just wanted to focus around gunplay. And as well as like throwing files, like I said. So, and eventually, bombs and enemies. So, I believe the alchemical preparations, I believe bombs, like that bomb ability falls, into this tree. So, as you can see, completely maxed out. It does 50% more damage and 50% more armor damage. That's really, really strong, for this build. That's just exactly what we want to focus on. In all honesty, it can really depend, though, on your preference of which attribute you focus on first, but I just immediately went for accuracy until I had it at about, like, level 3-ish, somewhere in there. And then I just started allocating my remaining points into the others that you see on your screen. So, the second attribute that I began allocating points into was just endurance. Now, I only ended up putting 3 points into this, just so that I could wear decent armor. I wanted to have more health, just so that way I'm not so squishy. Armor and balance is great to have, but if you're never really getting hit, I can't always justify having this. But like I said, I just wanted to be able to wear decent armor. You can't really blame me for just wanting to be prepared. The last real attribute that I focused on, because most of the time throughout your playthrough, I believe I'm level 37 right now, you're probably not going to hit that high on your first run through. I focused just on agility, just so that way I could use that scimitar that I went through in the my equipment screen, because I believe you just need 2 agility for it, just in case I want to whip that out and start slashing people apart instead of just shooting them from afar. Okay. As you can see, I did put points into willpower. It just gave me more magic points, so that way I can use that shadow burst and stasis magic skills. But I sometimes don't have to use them, but having a decent magic pool so I can use them, it's always a plus. Okay, let's jump over to the talents that I decided to do for my character. So, hands down, like I said, for my mage build, for combat purposes, chemistry is the way to go. It's an absolute must for any kind of gunslinger or mage build. Like I said, it makes powerful offensive and defensive potions in addition to being able to craft your own bullets with far fewer ingredients for the materials that you collect or purchase while you're out on your travels. So this is always good that you don't have to worry about scavenging any kind of bullets or chemical preparations. You can just make your own stuff. So that's always handy because you're pretty self-sufficient. And, for the next talent I selected was intuition. But the remaining talents that you decide to invest in, that's really just completely up to you. I just focused on intuition so I could gather more materials. And the more, I think, when you have intuition, it actually will have like a loot indicator on the materials out in the world. So it was easier for me to find and just go ahead and picking up that stuff so I could just craft more. Intuition also unlocks like dialogue options, as well as being able to sneak through into areas, that have certain loot, hidden away. But ultimately, it just depends, on what type of character you want to build, especially if you want to get into role play, whatever floats your boat. Charisma, that's always a good one to have, though, especially if you want to be a good diplomat, and helps you with being persuasive towards others. It also boosts, as you can see, boosts your companion's combat abilities. It reduces the merchant's prices as well. So the higher you have it, just lower prices, more combat efficiency from your companions. Not a bad way to go. So tell you what, let's go down to actually craftsmanship. So craftsmanship, that's like I said in the mage video, this is really important for upgrading your gear and weapons. I foregoed this again, just because I ended up taking majority of my stuff for upgrades, because I ended up sticking with the same piece of armor for majority of the game. So I really only had to focus on my guns whenever I got a new one. I would just go to the blacksmith a new serene just to have them craft my upgrades as long as I had the materials. But it was pretty expensive to do that from time to time. But I couldn't justify giving up chemistry or intuition. I just couldn't do it, especially for this type of build. So I did focus another 2 points, as you can see here, on vigor. Now granted, like I said, in terms of going over the attributes that I have in the skills, I am pretty high leveled, so you may not have as many points as I do, and that's okay. I took vigor. I just started allocating some points into that just because it helps you regenerate health and mana outside of combat. It also allows you to traverse like different parts of the map. So like walking across a fallen tree, I think you only need like 1 vigor for that. Jumping over a large gap, which I believe you just need 2, and I jumped over that large gap to get that scimitar. Or even scaling like a rock wall, I believe you need 3 for that. So these little shortcuts that you can have, it just helps you to like save time or avoid combat, get different kind of loot, like opportunities, things like that. It's helpful, but it's not necessary. So just keep that in mind, So, but make your build, if you want to take anything from this, just make your build what you want. Just have fun with it, regardless of the difficulty. Okay. So now we'll talk about companions. The 2 companions that I generally take with me, it's just going to be Kurt and Afra. As you can see right now, I have Kurt and Afra with me. I sometimes take Siora out with me, just because she heals the party. Kurt, hands down, he's a good tank. I mean, I think he's really the only tank option you have. And he deals some decent melee damage as long as you keep him properly equipped. And Afra is just a strong ranged ally. So as long as you're smart just about how you're going about upgrading your allies' gear, and you don't run like a knucklehead into every single melee encounter, and lead the charge, your allies, they shouldn't go down too much during enemy engagements. So alright, so the second half of this video, I definitely wanted to showcase just how strong this build is, not only against a group of enemies, but also we're going to fight a boss down in the coin arena. So I'll show you that I am on extreme, just so that we can verify that, so I'm not pulling your leg. Alright, so we're down in the coin arena. Let's speak to this guy. And let's go against a group of enemies first. Let's do that. So 5th challenge, round 2. This should be a group of enemies that are elite coin guard. I believe they all have a decent amount of armor and health, and they all hit like a truck. So let's make sure that we don't mess up. Excuse me. I was burping a little bit. My apologies. Okay. So looking at this, we have it paused just so I can show you right now just what I have equipped, like hotkeys and such. So the spells, I have stasis, the bomb, as well as the shadow burst. My firearms, right now I got 85 bullets. I have that as right trigger plus X, at least on the Xbox. Now, in terms of my directional pad, up for me is my health potion. Let's keep going down. There we go. I have on left is Major Fury potion. And it seems like that's really all I have right now. I don't really use anything other than that. I typically don't find myself needing to. So, but now we'll actually go ahead and showcase this. Okay. So let's just go ahead and shoot. We'll shoot twice. Let's roll away, pause, and then now you see I'm probably going to get hit by this guy if I'm not smart about what I do next. So since we have that full fury meter, and Afra is getting hit, Kurt being the knuckle-headed tank, he's not in there yet, so we're going to focus on the main, the middle enemy of this group. And we're going to do bomb. We're going to do the ultimate ability for the technician, and you'll see just how much damage it does. Probably after that, depending on how much health that these enemies have left, I may actually use a Fury Potion just so I can use Bomb again. If not, you know, we may just end up doing Shadow Burst, Stasis, and or just shooting the rest of the lot. So, just to make quick work of them. So let's do that. Let's do Bomb first and see how it goes. As you see, here we go. That took down some damage. Let's roll away. And let's... Oh, gosh! Oh, they're beating me up, trying to take my lunch. Knock them back. Alright, let's use that Fury Potion. Okay. And then... Oh, how many's left? I think there's only 2 enemies left, so I'm not quite sure how... You know, if it's really necessary to use Fury... the Bomb, or Ultimate ability. So, tell you what, let's use Stasis. Let's use Stasis, and then we'll shoot. Wow, 2,200 damage. Same thing, 2,200. So that does an extreme amount of damage. That's higher than actually my magic build that I had out. So, as you can see, it was a little sloppy. You know, I did get knocked around a little bit. I wasn't too smart about my distancing, but, you know, it happens. But we still made it through the encounter. So, we'll go ahead and do the second one. We'll do the 5th challenge, round 3, and this will be against a boss. It should be against a guardian. Alright, and we'll see how well we do. Okay, so tell you what, let's go with Stasis. We will shoot, just so we can start taking down some of his armor. We'll do the Bomb, just to get him poisoned. Ooh! Oh, I got hit by... Whoop! That. Hit him once. Alright, tell you what, let's use a Fury Potion, just so I can keep popping out those bombs. Whoop! Bomb. Shoot him again, boost up our Fury meter. Again. Stun him. Shoot him. Stun. Shoot. Stun. Shoot. And bomb. It seems kind of cheap, you know, doing this kind of stuff. Let's just throw a potion at him. Just do a little bit different damage instead of just doing the same old stuff. And just like that, he's down. So, it's a little repetitive using this build, but it's extremely powerful, you know, as long as you're smart about distance management. I highly recommend picking up Stasis at least. Maybe not Shadow Burst, but at least Stasis. And then maxing out that tree. So just that way you can, you know, freeze enemies in place. They'll take more damage. It'll progressively erode their armor. Just so that way your guns and any kind of, you know, bomb, file throws, any of that kind of stuff, you know, even your melee weapon will do at least 50% more. So, alright, that's the end of this build video. I appreciate you watching.